Oh man, it's gonna be a video. And she prefers the company of her dark imagination to that of most people. Is she me? That was gonna be my question. And local legend, darkness, the compulsive, propulsive, not compulsive. I feel like it is in true confession time. Favorite tropes, I can't pick. A beautifully placed, so safe to say it's going, yeah. Hi everybody, it's Audrey and welcome back to Chapter and Converse, and welcome to today's video, which is going to be all about all the dark academia books that I want to read. So in case you missed my previous video about dark academia books that I have read and I loved for book recommendations, and then of course, because it's basically, I don't know if I could pick between like that and Isolated as kind of like my favorite trope in a book, but either way, dark academia is like top tier for me as like a go-to, a buzzword, all the things. So it probably comes as no surprise that I have a really big stack of books. And this is the same list from before, but half of it was books I've read and half of it was books I haven't read yet. So I have a whole bunch of physical books I have a couple ebooks, a couple books that I would like to get, but a very laundry list of books about dark academia that I want to read. Since I haven't read any of these books, I don't know a ton about all of them and obviously can't offer opinions on them, so we're just going to give it a run through and see how it goes. Here's hoping. So I feel like most of these books are books where I was like, I have to have it, and then I put it aside and haven't read it yet, but a lot of these I think dark academia like always kind of has that fallish vibe to it, but some of these, like book number 1, The Furies, also has a witchcraft vibe to it, which is also perfect for spooky season. So this is by Katie Lowe, and this one takes place in 1998, and it says a 16-year-old girl is found dead on school property, dressed in white and posed on a swing. No known cause of death. 4 girls know what happened. They've kept their silence until now. That's literally all it says on the inside. These are 2 blurbs about it, so I'm in. Obsession, witchcraft, and murder. So it says teenage angst, friendship, murder. And here's the thing. Here comes the buzzword. A beautifully paced debut with hints of the secret history, intense, stylish, and deliciously dark. So I'm pretty certain that the secret history buzzword, along with deliciously dark, is what grabbed my attention. And then Louise O'Neill says, witches, murder, and teenage girls. This is the book of my dreams. I am obsessed. So you and me both, Louise. Let's find out what happens, but here we go. And while I don't feel like I need to say this, I'm just going to say it. These are in no particular order. Since I haven't read any of them yet, I don't know, I don't have a favorite because I haven't read any of them yet. And also, they're not in the order of when I plan to read them because moody. So we'll see what happens. The next book is called The Ballerinas, and I'm gonna have a hard time with her name. It's Rachel Kalbelke Dale. I know I'm saying that completely wrong. I feel like I'm overthinking it. So in this one, we have 13 years ago, Delphine abandoned her prestigious soloist spot at the Paris Opera Ballet for a new life in St. Petersburg, taking with her a secret that could upend the lives of her best friends, fellow dancers Lindsay and Margot. Now 36 years old, Delphine has returned to her former home and to the legendary Palace Garnier Opera House, I'm probably saying that wrong as well, to choreograph the ballet that will kickstart the next phase of her career, and she hopes to finally make things right with her former friends. But Delphine quickly discovers that things have changed while she's been away, and some secrets can't stay buried. So in this one, we are moving between past and present timelines, and it says it explores the complexities of female friendship, the dark drive towards physical perfection in the name of artistic expression, and the double-edged sword of ambition and passion, and the subliminal rage that so many women hold inside. So the dark academia vibe to this, and I did a lot of research when I was trying to find books that I had not read yet, is for the ballet school that they were all in together, and then we sort of also seem to get these very dark, twisted female friendships, which is one of my other most favorite tropes. I can't pick a favorite trope. I just can't. I'm not even gonna try. So it says you start out as perfect and you become something else. And I'm pretty sure this is a debut. Is that true? One of these comments says provocative opening pages. Ooh, I'm so intrigued. Okay, so no sooner do I say no particular order, but this next book is one I actually really want to read this fall. It's called Black Chalk, and this is by Christopher J. Yates, and it says 1 game, 6 students, 5 survivors. So I feel like it was towards the end of last fall, and I don't know if I was looking for books There was some article online, maybe like at Novel Suspects, about like if you liked If We Were Villains or if you liked The Secret History, some more dark academia books. And this was one of them, so I picked it up and put it on my shelf. But this one says, set in New York and at Oxford University, a group of 6 students play an elaborate game of dares and consequences with tragic results. I'm hooked. I'm already hooked. It was only ever meant to be a game played by 6 best friends in their first year at Oxford University. A game of consequences, silly forfeits, and childish dares. But then the games changed. So here we are, 14 years later, the remaining players must meet again for the final round. Who knows better than your best friends what would break you? Psychological thriller, partly inspired by the author's time at Oxford. Yes, please. Here we go. Perfect for fans of the high tension and expert pacing of The Secret History and the Bellwether revivals. That one I don't know at all. So when they were back at Oxford, something happened, and it says more personal, more humiliating, finally evolving into a vicious struggle with unpredictable and tragic results. So I guess that whatever game they were playing, somebody did not survive it, and now they're all forced to come back together again for that one last game. So similarly, I feel like maybe to kind of, in my dreams, and the girls are also nice here, like maybe it's someone on the quest for truth and revenge, or maybe I'm making that up because I haven't read it yet. So we'll find out. Has anyone read this? Let me know. I have another Christopher Yates book too, because I can't just buy one, but it just sounds so creepy, creepy, creepy. The next book I have is The Good Girls, and this is by Claire Eliza Bartlett. So this one says secrets and lies and then somebody dies. Love it, love it. It's like a little cruel nursery rhyme. So the troublemaker, the overachiever, the cheer captain, the dead girl. Jefferson Lauren High contains all of the above. After the shocking murder of senior Emma Baines, 3 of her classmates are at the top of the suspect list. Claude, the notorious partier, Avery, the head cheerleader, and Gwen, the would-be valedictorian. Everyone has a label, whether they like it or not, and Emma was always known as the good girl. But appearances are never what they seem, and as long-buried secrets come to light, the clock is ticking to find Emma's killer before another good girl goes down. So I've heard great things about this book and was always intrigued by it. And I say always intrigued by it. It came out in 2020. I've been intrigued about it for a while, so I got it, but it seems like a perfect time to read it, right? So I'm excited. I'm very excited. It got some really, really great reviews, and Kirkus Reviews wrote Revenge Served Cold. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I love a revenge story. So here we go, The Good Girls. The next one is a prep school book with the cover falling off, and it's How We Fall Apart by Katie Zhao. So I picked this one up a few months ago, and here we are. So in this one we have Jamie Ruan is the queen bee of Sinclair Prep until one day she's ... dead. Yes. Her former closest friends have no idea what happened to her, or do they? An anonymous poster calling themselves the Proctor points a finger. Jamie has 4 former friends. Each friend has a secret. One day Jamie goes missing. Which friend is guilty and deserves punishment? So we have Akil, Crystal, Alexander, and Nancy. And it says, did one of them kill Jamie? Who is the Proctor and what will they reveal next? So it kind of gives me a little bit of Ace of Spades vibes, which is in this pile as well. Kind of that Gossip Girl, Pretty Little Liars, maybe. Again, could be making it up. Oh, on the back it says a modern Gossip Girl for the buy box set that serves up urgent insights on class, race, and the brutality of high school striving. Dark, deceptive, juicy thriller. Words I love to read. So here we go. I do love a prep school book. I love that prep school vibe. Not that I ever went to prep school. I didn't. I went to public school, but I like, maybe it's the road not traveled that entices me. Okay, the next book I have is The Divines. Sorry, this is like really whited out on here. It's a very pale pink, and this is by Ellie Eaton. So this book takes place at an elite English boarding school, St. John the Divine. And it says the girls were notorious for flipping their hair, harassing teachers, chasing boys, and chain-smoking cigarettes. They were fiercely loyal, sharp-tongued, and cuttingly humorous in the way that only teenage girls can be. So now we have Josephine. She is now in her 30s, and her years at St. John were a lifetime ago. And she hasn't spoken to another divine in 15 years. So I don't know if that's like a secret society or something. Guess we'll find out. And it says, yet now Josephine inexplicably finds herself walking the school's ruined campus. The visit awakens blurry memories of those doomed final weeks that rocked the community. Oh, interesting. So Josephine is ruminating on the past and she becomes obsessed with her teenage self and the forgotten girls of her one-time orbit. With each memory that resurfaces, she circles closer to the ugly secret at the heart of the school's scandal. The more she recalls, the further her life unravels, derailing not just her marriage and career, but her entire sense of self. What even is this book? I mean, obviously I bought it, but wow, this feels like there's a lot happening here. So we've got present day Los Angeles and 1990s Britain. That's what I liked about it. It was set in the 90s in Britain. The Divines is a scorching examination of the power of adolescent sexuality, female identity, and the destructive class divide. Can we ever really escape our past? This has got a really loud spine on it. So this sounds really interesting too. I say this like I'm browsing in a bookstore. It's embarrassing. I'm browsing my own shelves. I mean, this is silly. So the first, okay, I've got two from the same series, and this is Tana French, The Secret Place. So this was on my list for series September. We'll see if I get to it. I still have time. It's only September 17th when I'm filming this. And this is, I want to say, book number 4 in the series, but you can read Dublin Murder Squad out of sequence. I've read In the Woods, but I haven't read anything since then. So book number 2 is The Likeness. While I was doing research, I saw that there's some sort of a connection to, I think, a boarding school or a prep school in this. I just don't know what it is. I don't know well enough about that. But the reason I bought this book many years ago is because we have that dark academia vibe to it. So in this one, we are following Detective Stephen Moran, and he has been waiting for his chance to join the Dublin Murder Squad. And one day, 16-year-old Holly McKay arrives in his office with the photo she found on The Secret Place, her school's board for anonymous revelations. Love it. Stephen joins with tough, abrasive detective Antoinette Conway to reopen the case that's gone unsolved for a year, beneath the watchful eye of Holly's father, fellow detective Frank McKay. There we go. When clues lead back to Holly's close-knit group of friends, to the rival clique, and to the tangle of relationships that bound them all to the murdered boy, the private underworld of teenage girls turns out to be more mysterious and more dangerous than the detectives imagined. This was 100% why I wanted to read this one next, because the complicated female relationships, the female friendships, all the dark messed upness that exists between them. And I read In the Woods an embarrassing long time ago and did not continue with the series, though not for lack of having, where's the front? All the books in the series. So I would like to get back into it, and this might be my good entryway in. And again, it says The Secret History on the back. And then again, in my research, The Likeness came up, but what I know about The Likeness is somebody is found murdered who looks like Detective Cassie Maddox, who was featured in the Woods. She was, I feel like, a co-main character in that, and I guess she gets more main character in this. So I don't know the connection to the dark academia. If anybody knows, without spoiling anything, let me know. The quote on the back from the Washington Post says, French has fashioned a plot that harks back to both Donna Tartt and Wilkie Collins. So I'm guessing that's a Secret History nod right there, but we'll find out. I will eventually read it. Make no mistake, I'm eventually gonna read it, but I think this one might come first. The next book I have is a YA book that I have brought up so many times, and I was gonna unhaul it, and then I wanted to read it first, and then I was gonna unhaul it again. I just can't seem to quit this book without having read it yet, and it's called Stags. This is by M.A. Bennett. This lighting is just, I'm sorry you guys, I'm trying to compensate for not being super bright outside, but this is One Deadly Weekend. So it says, it was nearly half term when the envelope came. Of course, this being Stags, which stands for St. Aidan the Great School. So Greer is our scholarship student, and this is like a prestigious school, and all the students' bloodlines go back years and years and years and years. And Greer is very surprised to be invited to this weekend away with this elite group of students at a private family estate. So I don't know if this is like an And Then There Were None kind of thing. I don't know if this is all like a big joke of a long weekend, but it says a psychological survival adventure with complex characters, a keen sense of place, past and present, and a breakneck pace, blah, 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 blah. I don't remember where I read about this book, but there was something about it where I was like, oh my God, I absolutely must read this. And I bought it ages ago, and I just can't seem to break up with it, even though I haven't always seen the best things about it. So it fits the dark academia, so we'll see if I read it. And then one other YA book that I have is called They Wish They Were Us by Jessica Goodman. So I don't even know when I went on this YA like boarding school. It was probably when I was reading Truly Devious and things like that, which I say that like it was ages ago. It was like 2 years ago, and I bought up all these other books. So in this book, we follow a girl named Jill, and her freshman year, her best friend Shayla was killed by her boyfriend Graham. After a dark night on the beach, Graham confessed, the case was closed, and Jill tried to move on. So we fast forward, and here we are senior year, and Jill starts getting texts proclaiming Graham's innocence, and her dreams of the perfect senior year start to crumble. If Graham didn't kill Shayla, who did? Jill vows to find out, but digging deeper means putting her friendships and her future in jeopardy. So we will find out what happens. I also realize I totally thrifted this. I'm sorry you guys can't see. This lighting is so painful. So I will let you know. This was supposed to be a great high school thrillery thing, and it's one of my weaknesses. Okay, the next book I have is The Broken Girls by Simone St. James. So this is another one where after I read The Sundown Motel, I was gonna read all the things and bought the book and then didn't read it yet. But this one, I'm guessing, probably has ghosty vibes just based on what I know about Simone St. James, but I also maybe am making that part up. So this one, we get two timelines. We get Vermont in 1950 and in 2014. So in 1950, it says there's a place for the girls whom no one wants, the troublemakers, the illegitimate, the too smart for their own good. It's called Idlewild Hall, and local legend says the boarding school is haunted. There's the ghosty. 4 roommates bond over their whispered fears, their budding friendship blossoming until one of them mysteriously disappears. I'm loving this. So then we have Vermont in 2014, and it says 20 years ago, journalist Fiona Sheridan's elder sister's body was found in the overgrown fields near the ruins of Idlewild Hall. That is a tongue twister. And although her sister's boyfriend was tried and convicted of the murder, Fiona can't stop revisiting the events, unable to shake the feeling that something was never quite right about the case. So Fiona finds out that Idlewild Hall, it's just like a cruel joke to have to keep saying this name over and over again. It's being restored by an anonymous benefactor, and she decides to write a story about it. But a shocking discovery during the renovations links the loss of her sister to secrets that were meant to stay hidden in the past, and a voice that won't be silenced. Is that voice a ghost voice? Is it a voice of the woman who went missing years ago? I don't know, but you know, a boarding school from back in the day that's haunted, where people are going missing from, works for me. Okay, another boarding school book, I believe, is Madam, and this is by Phoebe Wynne. So here we go again. Imagine if Donna Tartt and Margaret Atwood got together to write a creepy, suspenseful novel about a school for young women in the Scottish Highlands. I mean, these books are just getting me with these comparisons and shouting out some of my favorite authors. So in this one, we have Rose Christie. She's a 26-year-old classics teacher, and she is invited to come teach at the school, and she is super surprised because it says the school's prestige is unrivaled. So it doesn't take long for her to figure out there's some stuff that's not quite right here. And there's more to the secret circumstances surrounding the abrupt departure of her predecessor. It says a woman whose ghost lingers everywhere, and more behind the scenes than anyone is willing to let on. So she is searching into what happened to that teacher. So it says a darkly feminist tale pitched against a haunting backdrop and populated by an electrifying cast of heroines. I don't know. I feel like this is another one of those books where I either hear nothing or I hear people like, it's not as good as The Secret History. And I feel like that's just, it's the Gone Girl bar. You can't compare stuff to that. But it has all the things that I love in a book. So stay tuned. I will definitely let you guys know more. I love this quote on the back. It says, strange, dark, and utterly disturbing. I loved it. I love me some utterly disturbing. So I feel like the, whatchamacallit, the atmosphere of the Scottish Highlands also sounds really fun. So more to follow, more to follow. Okay, here's another one that I really plan to read this year, and it's The Truance. This is by Kate Weinberg. So I bought this a couple years ago. This is one of those ones that was supposed to be like The Secret History. Had to have it, haven't read it yet. So in this one, it says people disappear when they most want to be seen. Jess Walker is the middle child of a middle-class family and has perfected the art of vanishing in plain sight. But when she arrives at a concrete university campus, under flat, gray East England skies, her world flares with color. So she is drawn into the tightly knit group of rule breakers. I feel like here's where you get a little bit of that Secret History comparison. The group is led by their maverick teacher, Lorna Clay, and Jess begins to experiment with a new version of herself, The dynamic between the friends begins to darken as they share secrets, lovers, and finally a tragedy. Soon Jess is thrown up against the question she fears the most. What is the true cost of an extraordinary life? So this is another one of those books where I feel like I see it a lot, but I don't really hear a lot of people talking about it. So I'm very curious. I also am just garbage for this cover. I think it's so beautiful. So we'll see. We'll see, we'll see, we'll see. But this one, like I said, is definitely one that I want to actually read, prioritize this fall. Next up, I had mentioned this already. So this is Ace of Spades, and this is by Farida Abake Imide. So I started to actually read this. I made it to page 25. I didn't DNF it because I wasn't enjoying it. So I started to read this in August, I want to say it was, and I had the audiobook of it because I thought it would be great because there were dual POVs, and this has kind of that Gossip Girl, Pretty Little Liars vibe to it, and it felt like it would be very creepy and good on audio. But I actually want to physically read this book because I feel like there's a lot going on, just even in the short amount of pages that I read, between the text messages and the multiple characters, and I felt like I was missing stuff. And I find that this happens every once in a while, and it happened most recently when I was reading Hangman by Daniel Cole. I felt that in the audiobook I was missing details that were important, and this does have that mystery vibe to it. So things were happening when I was listening, and I'm like, what are they talking about? And I went backwards. So I'm gonna physically read this book, which is why I put a small pin in it. So this one says, all you need to know is I'm here to divide and conquer like all great tyrants do. Signed, Aces. So Aces is the anonymous text messenger who reveals everybody's secrets. I love these kinds of books. So in this one, we are at Niveus Private Academy. We have 2 students who are the senior prefects, and it looks like their school year is off to a perfect start. So we know something bad's gonna happen to them. And I know because I read the beginning of the book. So it says, what seems like a sick prank quickly turns into a dangerous game with all the cards stacked against them. So whoever is behind all of this is trying to take down these top students. And it is Devin and Shamika, and they are part of this elite prefects. Like I said, Devin was sort of a surprise addition to the prefects, and Shamika is like on the running for valedictorian, queen bee, all the things, and somebody is out to get them. So this totally sounds up my alley, and I'm gonna, like I said, physically read it because I just want to pay attention and just get lost in it. And I was having fun with what I did read of it, but I'm gonna like read it. So I'll let you know when I do. This is also a debut. Just feels like I should mention that. The next book I have I actually talked about in the first video, and this is The Plot by Jean Hanif Korelitz. So I talked about Kill Your Darlings by David Bell in the first video, which I read and really, really enjoyed. So this book has a very similar storyline, and this is one of those weird twists of fate where both of those books came out, I feel like within weeks of each other. They came out like in the same month, but ideas strike, so you just never know. So in this one, we are following Jacob Finch Bonner, was once a promising young novelist with a respectably published first book. Today, he's teaching a third-rate MFA program and struggling to maintain what's left of his self-respect. He hasn't written, let alone published, anything decent in years. So of course he has a completely arrogant student named Evan who doesn't need Jake's help because the plot of his book in progress is a sure thing. And it says Jake is prepared to dismiss the boast as typical amateur narcissism, but then he hears the plot. So Jake is prepared to see this book get published, probably not happy about it. And it says, but the publication never comes. And when he discovers that his former student has died, presumably without ever completing the book, Jake does what any self-respecting writer would do with a story like that, a story that absolutely needs to be told. So Jake winds up taking the plot, stealing the idea, and writing the book. And it says he's wealthy, famous, praised, and read all over the world. But at the height of his glorious new life, an email arrives, the first salvo in a terrifying anonymous campaign. You are a thief, it says. So much like Kill Your Darlings, where you also had a professor in that book, he had a student who went missing and he wound up taking her manuscript and publishing it as his own. And then it turns out that student was not dead, in fact. And she comes back on page 1 to haunt him. In this one, we have a very similar storyline. So what I have heard about this book is that there's really interesting insight to the writer's life in this. And I am very, very drawn to that as a writer. Kill Your Darlings was definitely very thriller based. I think this is probably more literary thriller or mystery. I don't think this is like fast paced like the David Bell book was, but I could just be making that part up. So I read You Should Have Known, which was the book that got turned into that TV show, The Undoing. And rest assured that TV show was not even really a glimmer of You Should Have Known, other than maybe like the first 5 minutes of it. So I very much enjoyed that book, but it was also very slow burn. It was very character driven. So my guess, again, is that's her style, that this is going to be very character driven as well. I always love a book about writers and writing, and I love the idea of stealing somebody else's idea and then them coming back to haunt you, or somebody knowing what you did. I just love it. And I love the anonymous, kind of gives me like that very Gossip Girl kind of a thing, like I'm going to reveal your secret. So I don't know what's gonna happen here. I'm gonna find out when I read it, but that's the plot. Okay, so true confession time. I was listening to a podcast, not a surprise, with Ashley Winstead, not a surprise, but this was an older one, and it was about when In My Dreams came out, and somebody was asking her about influences or books she would recommend, and she talked about a couple sort of dark academia books that she loved. One of them was The Girls Are Also Nice Here by Laurie Elizabeth Flynn, which I talked about in my first video, and another one is These Violent Delights. And this is by Micah Nemerever? Gosh, sorry, terrible. I'm doing terrible with names today. So this is one of those books that I feel like I've heard a bunch about, but I know there's also another book called These Violent Delights, which I think might be a little sci-fi fantasy-ish, but I don't know if I feel like I keep hearing about it because there's another book under the same name. But either way, this is the one she recommended, and this is the one that I got. And it has the secret history in this Hitchcockian tale of two college students, both with troubled pasts, whose escalating obsession with each other will radically alter the course of their lives. So this one takes place in the early 1970s in Pittsburgh, and we have Paul, who has started his university days, and it's with the hope of moving past the recent death of his father. Sensitive, insecure, and incomprehensible to his grieving family, Paul feels isolated and alone. When he meets the worldly Julian in his freshman ethics class, Paul is immediately drawn to his classmate's effortless charm. So they become fast friends, and it says their friendship spirals into all-consuming intimacy. They each learn the lengths to which the other will go in order to stay together, their obsession ultimately hurtling them towards an act of irrevocable violence. So it says, unfolding with a propulsive ferocity, These Violent Delights is an exquisitely plotted excavation of the depths of human desire and the darkness it could bring forth in us. This intrigues me so much. So this is another debut novel. I don't know why I keep shouting that out, but I do. And it says, a beautiful portrait of intimacy, desperation, and the damage that damaged hearts can cause. It shattered me. Oh, intoxicating obsession, the toxic consequences of that obsession. Has anybody read this book? I know, I just needed to know. And I feel like this is gonna be an unpopular opinion. It's got deckled edges, which I love. I don't know why this like makes a book feel fancier to me. So that has nothing to do with anything other than just, what a beautiful book. So, bought it. And then another one, she's back here, hold on. Prepping to film, Audrey, missed a book. So this one is called Bad Habits, and this is by Amy Gentry. So she wrote Good Is Gone, which I read earlier this year. And this book, I feel like this might be pushing a little bit on dark academia, I don't know. So it says, everyone has a few bad habits, hers is murder. I mean, yes, please. So we are following Mackenzie Claire Woods. So back in high school, she was known as Mac, and in present day, she is known as Claire, and she is a professor enjoying her newfound hotshot status, and she's at an academic conference where she runs into Gwen, who was her foil, rival, and former best friend. And she says a face from the past that she would rather not see. So they were fast friends in high school, and then they both went after the same elite graduate program and both got admitted, it sounds like. But they become entangled in some messed up stuff that was going on. They compete head to head for a life-changing fellowship. The more twisted the track to success becomes, the more Mac contorts herself to stay one step ahead. But which deception signals the point of no return? So I don't know if we're getting like all past or if we're getting past and present timelines. Again, another book that I haven't heard many people talking about, but I'm really curious about it, and I very much enjoyed Good Is Gone. I was gonna say Gone for Good. Good Is Gone. And I'm just curious about it. So I am obsessed with Ashley Winstead. You guys know that if you've been here for a minute. And I consistently pick up book recommendations that she has mentioned. So I picked up this one. The next one I have, I started to grab it, is The It Girl by Ruth Ware. So I mentioned The Lying Game in the first video that I made, and this is her newest one that came out this year, which I was at first not intentionally saving for fall, but then I decided to save it for fall. So the inside of this one says, it was Hannah who found April's body 10 years ago. It was Hannah who didn't question what she saw that day. Did her testimony put an innocent man in prison? She needs to know the truth, even if it means questioning her own friends, even if it means putting her own life at risk. Because if the killer wasn't a stranger, could it be someone she knows? So my understanding is we get some past and present timelines in this. Hannah was the it girl at school and she was murdered, and Hannah starts to look into it because she couldn't possibly live with herself if she put the wrong person behind bars, and also is one of her friends a murderer. I need to know. I'm a huge Ruth Ware fan. You guys know this about me, and I'm very excited for this one. So again, intentionally saved it for fall, and 'tis the season. It's time to find out. So it says, everybody wanted her life, somebody wanted her dead. Yes, please. So excited. I should say that louder. I'm so excited. The next book I have is Bunny by Mona Awad. So I actually have the ebook of this one. And this one I have seen compared to Heather's, which was basically all I needed to know about it. And I've definitely heard that this book is kind of weird, which I'm kind of weird, so it's fine by me, but I feel like Lala kind of swears by it. I know Sarah from Sarah's Nightstand read it recently and she enjoyed it. So again, this is one of those books where I feel like it's intimidated me a little bit because I don't know if I'm not smart enough to get it or if I'm totally going to enjoy it, but I definitely feel like this is a book you specifically need to be in a mood for. So in this one, we have Samantha, and it says she couldn't be more of an outsider in her small, highly selective MFA program at New England's Warren University. She's a scholarship student. There's so many themes to these dark academia books, right? And she prefers the company of her dark imagination to that of most people. Is she me? I mean, what's happening here? So in this one, we have a clique of unbearably twee rich girls who call each other Bunny and seem to move and speak as one. But everything changes when Samantha receives an invitation to the Bunny's fabled smut salon and finds herself inexplicably drawn to their front door, ditching her only friend Ava in the process. So Samantha plunges deeper and deeper into the Bunny's sinister yet saccharine world. I think this is just, it says, Bunny is a down the rabbit hole tale of loneliness and belonging, friendship and desire, and the fantastic and terrible power of the imagination. So even the first review of somebody that I follow, it says, wow, this book was so incredibly strange and unique. And I think this is also one of those books where you don't quite know what's going on for quite a while. So I think a lot of people quit on it. So I think you need to be comfortable in the, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of, not obscure, but sort of comfortable in a zone of not quite being able to connect the dots and connect the pieces of things. So in the, darn, why can't I think of the word? I'm having a day, you guys. You know what I mean. If I think of the word, I'll write it on the screen. But it's not the unknown. Anyway, this one sounds deliciously strange and I'm just very curious about it. Like I said, I've had it on my iPad for a while and I eventually will dive into it. So maybe this is my season for Bunny. And then the next book I have, I kind of can't believe I haven't read this one yet because it is by one of my favorite authors and not typically someone who saves a book for a certain season. I don't know. I don't know why I didn't read it. I have no excuse. This is For Your Own Good by Samantha Downing. So this is her book that came out last year. She did not have a novel come out this year, but there is one coming to us next year. I can't wait, but lucky for me, I haven't read this one yet. So I've got something to keep me busy. So in this one we have Teddy Crutcher has won Teacher of the Year at the prestigious Belmont Academy, home exclusively to the brightest and the best. He says his wife couldn't be more proud, though no one has seen her in a while. He's deeply committed to improving his students and well aware which one needs improving. And all he wants is for his colleagues and the endlessly interfering parents to stay out of his way. Oddly, not everyone agrees that Teddy has their best interests at heart. But will that change when someone receives a lesson to die for? So he sounds brilliant. And this was one of those books, I was actually listening to a podcast, shocker, last year when this book came out. And I feel like maybe this is what made me press pause. The interviewer in the podcast gave something away. Like they told too much. I feel like that was just enough. UK book covers know how to do it. Give me just a hint of it, just like the It Girl with Ruth Ware. Give me just a hint of it. And I got turned off by hearing too much in that podcast, and now I'm like, what did they say? I don't quite remember, so maybe that's part of the point. Maybe that's why I decided to wait. Look at me, forgetting details. Who even am I? So for whatever reason, I didn't read it last year. I now have an excuse to read it this year, but I do very much enjoy her writing. I have no doubt this is gonna be dark and messed up. I loved My Lovely Wife. I really loved He Started It. I feel like she does great twists and turns and does some really great characters. She is not shy about the dark and messed up, which of course is my sweet spot. So very excited for this, and excited that she wrote a dark academia book that I can sink my teeth into. The next book I have is Dark Things I Adore by Katie Latari. So full confession, I bought this last fall because it looked like the perfect fall read, and then I didn't read it. So coming in strong, right? Coming in strong here. So in this one, we have 3 whispered secrets, 2 witnesses, 1 dead in the trees. And the woman 30 years later bent on bringing the guilty to their knees. So we have 1988, we have 2018, and back in 1988, we have a group of outcasts gather at a small prestigious art camp nestled in the Maine woods. So I feel like art camp counts as dark academia. It doesn't have to be school. Camp has kind of got that school-like vibe to it. So it says, they're the painters, bright, hopeful, teeming with potential. But secrets and dark ambitions rise like smoke from a campfire, and the truths they tell will come back to haunt them in ways more deadly than they dreamed. 2018, esteemed art professor Max Durant arrives at his protege's remote home to view her graduate thesis collection. He knows Audra is beautiful and brilliant. He knows being invited into her private world is a rare gift. But he doesn't know that Audra has engineered every aspect of their weekend together, every detail, every conversation. Audra has woven the perfect web. Because only Audra knows what happened that summer in 1988, Max's secret and the dark things that followed. And even though it won't be easy, Audra knows someone must pay. I love a revenge story. I love a revenge story. I love a revenge story. This one sounds so good. So shame on me for all of these books and buying them and not having read them yet, but stay tuned. I will let you guys know. There is an author's note in the front for this, and it says this book addresses themes of abuse, mental illness, and suicide. So there are some numbers to call, there's some resources and phone numbers, websites, all of that stuff. So if any of those things are of concern to you guys, just be aware. I don't know too much about this book, obviously, but it sounds very intriguing to me. I love the past and present timeline, and I love a revenge plot, so very intrigued about this one. And then the last book I have, it finally is coming to an end. I've talked about this recently, and it's Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. So this was on my series September non-TBR TBR. It's the first in a series. The second book is coming out in January. It's the one with the really creepy rabbit on the cover, which won't necessarily prevent me from buying it, but I've decided I'm gonna read book 1 first to make sure I enjoy the series before I commit to the really scary rabbit on the cover. But this is her adult debut. This one takes place at Yale, and it has some supernatural, fantastical elements to it. So in this one, we are following Alex Stern, and it says she's the most unlikely member of Yale's freshman class. So she was raised in Los Angeles by a hippie mom. It says she dropped out of school early and dropped into a world of shady drug dealer boyfriends, dead-end jobs, and much, much worse. In fact, by age 20, she is the sole survivor of a horrific, unsolved multiple homicide. Yikes. Some might say she's thrown her life away. But at her hospital bed, Alex is offered a second chance to attend one of the most prestigious universities on a full ride. What's the catch and why her? That was gonna be my question. Still searching for answers, Alex arrives in New Haven, tasked by her mysterious benefactors with monitoring the activities of Yale's secret societies. Their 8 windowless tombs are the well-known haunts of the rich and powerful, from high-ranking politicos to Wall Street's biggest players. But their occult activities are more sinister and more extraordinary than any paranoid imagination might conceive. I knew there was some fantastical stuff to this. They tamper with forbidden magic, they raise the dead, and sometimes they prey on the living. So let's find out, Leigh. Let's see what's going on here. So I also have the Six of Crows series, which has nothing to do with dark academia, but only to say that I have a few Leigh Bardugo books and I haven't read any of them yet. So I think this one will kind of be up my alley and also kind of push me out of a comfort zone. Stephen King says it was the best fantasy novel he's read in years because it's about real people. So one of the things I do like about the concept of this is we are grounded in sort of the real world of Yale, air quotes big time, but we also get that fantastical element, which in a similar but totally different way reminds me of Lore by Alexander Bracken, where we are in the real world of modern New York City, but then we get the Greek gods fantastical element to it. So I'm very curious. I have heard so many great things about this book. Has anybody read it? So I'm very interested, and honestly, I've had it for way too long that it's kind of embarrassing at this point. So 'tis the season, 'tis the season, 'tis the season. It's time to find out what's going on. So that's gonna do it for all the books that I wanna read in the dark academia space that's a lie. Every single time I do this, every time, there's always one book that I forget. And the reason why I forgot this book, I'm Googling it. It's because I ordered it from Thriftbooks and it has not arrived yet, but that's okay. And when I was doing my deep dive research, this one said for fans of Dead Poets Society, which you guys, it's like my favorite movie. So this is called Ghosts of Harvard by Francesca Saratella. And this one, it sounds like it has legit ghosty vibes, not just sort of mysteries from the past type of a thing. So we are following Katie Archer, and she arrives on Harvard's campus, desperate to understand why her brother Eric, a genius who developed paranoid schizophrenia, took his own life there a year before. So her decision to go to Harvard, it says, threatens to break her family apart, but she's haunted by questions of what she might have missed, and there's only one place to find answers. So she investigates her brother's final year at Harvard, armed only with a blue notebook of Eric's cryptic scribblings. She knew he'd been struggling with paranoia and delusions, but what tipped him over the edge? Voices fill her head, seemingly belonging to 3 ghosts who passed through the university in life or death, and whose voices, dreams, and terrors still echo the halls. Among them is a person whose name has been buried for centuries, and another whose name mankind will never forget. Ooh, I don't know what this is going on here. Does she share Eric's illness, or is she tapping into something else? Katie doesn't know how or why these ghosts are contacting her, but as she is drawn deeper into their worlds, she believes they're moving her closer to the truth about Eric, even as keeping them secret isolates her further. Will listening to these voices lead her to the one voice she craves, her brother's, or will she follow them down a path to her own destruction? So I am sure that people out there have talked about this book. I had never heard of this book before. The magic of doing some research. This came out in May of 2020. I'm super intrigued, and I found it for a couple dollars on Thriftbooks, so I picked it up. Neither of my library apps had it, and I really, really, really wanted to know. I don't know how this is compared to Dead Poets Society. I'm thinking of like some possible connections, but that was one of the things I saw, and just like that 1000% sold it to me. So we will find out. I'm definitely intrigued by this one, and I feel like maybe I'm gonna say this and then everyone's gonna come for me. I was like, maybe I'll read this when I get it. I wanna read it this fall. I wanna read all the books this fall. So legit, that's the last one on my list. It's a lot of books. So let me know, you guys. Have you read any of the books I talked about that I haven't read yet? Would you prioritize any over the others? Thoughts, feelings, and of course, what am I missing? What have I not covered? Give me some more dark academia books that are out there. Let me know what I have forgotten about. Let everybody else know too. And we'll chat about it down below, which is always the fun part. So thank you guys so much for being here, for watching all of these videos, for being in the dark academia mood with me. I just love it. I love it so much. I can't wait for it to get a little bit cooler. It's been cool in the morning here, but it has warmed up during the day. My sweaters are crying to come out of the closet, and I can't wait to bundle up in them and read all of these books. So until then, thanks for being here. I already said that, and I will see you guys in another video really soon. So take care, everybody. Bye.